Now, I know you want to hear our keynote, and I do too. And let me say this. For years, the pro-life movement, and I have been lobbying for 28 years, it seems like we felt like we'd wandered in a desert, seeking the promised land of an abortion-free Texas. While at times, we did make some progress. But in 2009, things really changed. That's when God sent us, as we wandered in the desert, manna from heaven to help us in our journey. That manna is Abby Johnson. And when Abby walked out of the Planned Parenthood abortion facility in an act that was pure faith and pure courage, for us, it was a total game changer. For the first time, we knew exactly how Planned Parenthood worked, how they thought, and where their weaknesses lie. It's no coincidence that the greatest gains in Texas have been achieved since Abby has been in our ranks, and all of these bills have her influence and her help. Please welcome Abby Johnson.
Thank you. Oh, stop it. I could really mess this up. Well, howdy. Man, it is good to be here with all of you. This, in my opinion, is the best pro-life event that I go to every year. And what an honor it is to stand up in front of all of you today. I came here with my husband and our youngest son. I know, my husband, he deserves a yell. And my youngest son, Jude, who is adopted. And last time I spoke here, which I think was about 5 years ago, it was just the three of us, me, Doug, and our daughter, Grace, who's now 8. Now, instead of the three of us, in 5 years, we have gone from 3 to a family of 7. I know. And we have an 8-year-old daughter, and then we have 4 boys, ages 3, 2, 1, and 6 months. And I know, we are legitimately, and and I tell people we became pro-life and we couldn't stop breeding. So I think that's probably true. Anyway, it is so good to be here with you tonight. And I think that most of you probably know my story, but I will go over it just a little bit with you so you kind of know where I'm coming from. I worked for Planned Parenthood for 8 years. I was a clinic director at their center in Bryan College Station, Texas, which is now closed. And it's just one of the many that we have closed down in the past few years. And people ask me all the time, Abby, you grew up in a great home, you grew up in church, you grew up with Christian parents, which, by the way, I don't think I've ever done this in a big way, but I firmly believe that one of the main reasons that I'm standing here in front of you today is because I had praying parents. And my parents have stood by me even when I was off course. And they have loved me through it and continued to pray for me, I know, every day of my life, even when I was at Planned Parenthood, particularly when I was at Planned Parenthood. And I just want to acknowledge them today. Mike and Kathleen Brannon, will you please stand? So people ask me all the time, Abby, how is it that you went from being this good Christian kid? I promise you that every time the doors of the church were open, we were there. How did you go from being that kid to being a person who ran an abortion clinic? How is it that you went from being that person to being a person who was on an abortion clinic table not once but twice to take the lives of my children. How did that happen? And I don't have a silver bullet answer for you except to say that it happened just a little bit at a time, because that's the way that sin works in our lives. Just a little bit at a time, just one justification here, one rationalization here, and one day you wake up and you don't even know who you are anymore. I learned when I left Planned Parenthood that if you have to justify what you're doing or how you believe, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. Because God's word never needs justification. But while I know that the enemy, that Satan has to sneak around to do his dirty work, I know that when God wants to change your life, it can happen like that. And that's what happened for me in 2009. 2009 was a great year for me. In April, I was awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year Award. I know you're all proud of me. Hold your applause. And but I was really excited. I got a big monetary bonus, but I didn't care anything about that because I made tons of money when I worked at Planned Parenthood. But the most exciting thing for me was that I got to go to their annual gala and I got to sit at the head table. And I was sitting with the person who was given Planned Parenthood's Margaret Sanger Circle Award. Now we know who Margaret Sanger is, right? Founder of Planned Parenthood, her first clinic founded in 1916 in New York. Margaret Sanger was a eugenist. She often worked with Hitler. She said things like, the most merciful thing a large family can do to one of its infant members is to kill it. She also said that Negroes were human weeds which needed to be exterminated from the human garden. Currently, we see her dream coming to fruition right in front of our faces, as there are now more African American pregnancies that end in abortion than are born alive. And in some states, such as Alabama, the abortion rate on the African American community is at 72%. I heard that, I found out that Hitler was actually involved with the creation of Volkswagen. And can you imagine, though, if Volkswagen gave out their most distinguished award and called it the Adolf Hitler Award? I mean, can you imagine what would happen? People would be like burning their Volkswagen, like running them off a bridge. I mean, nobody would want anything to do with Volkswagen anymore. Yet, Planned Parenthood continues to celebrate their racist roots by giving out their most distinguished award in her name every single year. And this year I was really excited because I got to sit at the head table with the winner of that award, and it was Hillary Clinton. Don't be jealous. I know. And I was really excited, it was Hillary and me and, 10 Secret Servicemen. And I remember her walking up to the stage to receive this award. And I just remember thinking, this is the best it's ever going to get for me at Planned Parenthood. This is it. Here, I'm at my peak here with Planned Parenthood. In August of that year, I had a meeting with my supervisor. I was looking at our budget for the upcoming fiscal year 2010. And I thought that there was a typo. I thought that I noticed a typo there, and because I knew that we had a quota, an abortion quota, a certain amount of abortions that we had to perform every month in order to keep our budget. But we never had a problem meeting it, so it was never something that really came up or something I paid attention to. But this year, in the upcoming fiscal year, I thought I saw something that was a mistake. You see, I saw that they had actually doubled our abortion quota. And I thought, well, that can't be right, because you see, here at Planned Parenthood, we are all about reducing the number of abortions. That's what I said. That's what I said to the media. That's what they said to me when I first started working there. And so I said this out loud to my supervisor, and she started laughing. And she said, "Abby, why would we reduce the abortion clinic number, the abortion quota number? That's how we make our money." Now, you, a bunch of pro-lifers, are looking at me like, well, duh. But I was genuinely shocked. I was very surprised. And I don't remember how I justified that conversation going home, but I'd been doing it for 8 years, so I'd become pretty good at it. But about a month later, we had a physician come in from Austin. And this particular physician ran an abortion clinic here in Austin, and it's now closed. And he was explaining to me that at his own private practice that he did abortions a little bit differently in his center. He was telling me that, so I know this is going to be a surprise, but it's actually safer if a doctor can see what he's doing while he's performing surgery on someone. And I'd never really thought about it because at Planned Parenthood, we performed abortions in a blind manner. We did not use the ultrasound for anything at all except to determine how far along the woman was in her pregnancy so that we would know how much to charge her for her abortion. And then the ultrasound was moved away, and the doctor had a suction tube, and he just blindly poked around inside the woman's uterus until he had enough blood and tissue in a glass jar. That glass jar went into a pass-through in the wall. On the other side of that wall was a lab called the POC lab. Now, what does POC stand for? Products of conception. What's that? That's the baby, right? But you can't say baby inside of an abortion clinic. So we said POC or POC, or if the staff was feeling funny, they said it stood for pieces of children. And inside of that POC lab, the POC technician would dump everything out into a glass baking dish, reassemble the parts of the baby, then put all of the pieces of every baby that we aborted that day into a plastic bag. That plastic bag went into a freezer, which the staff called the nursery. And once a week, Stericycle, or it was always Stericycle for us, would come and pick up the aborted babies, take them back to their facility to be incinerated. Now, I knew that that's the way that abortion takes place. That's the only way that I knew abortion to take place because I had only worked at Planned Parenthood. But this visiting physician came back one day and he told me that if the right patient presented herself, that he would show me what this looked like. That he thought it would be a good learning experience for me. And I stood there, I did the ultrasound. Now, I'm not medically trained in any way. I'm not a doctor or nurse, none of that. I'm not certified in ultrasonography. But I am a licensed therapist, so if you're having a bad day, we can talk about it. But if you need some sort of medical procedure, I'm really not your gal. But inside of Planned Parenthood, they don't care. You just have to be willing, and you go through a 1-hour in-house training with another staff member who is also not medically trained. And once you go through that training, they set you loose to perform invasive medical procedures on women. And I had gone through that training, and so in their eyes, I was qualified. We did the measurement. We found that the baby was 13 weeks along. And I remember looking at the screen and thinking, wow, that really looks like a baby. I mean, I know it's not because Planned Parenthood told me it's not. Now, I have an 8-year-old daughter. I've only been out of the industry 6 years. I had my daughter when I worked at Planned Parenthood, and when I was pregnant with Grace, she was a baby. But she was a baby because she was wanted. And if a baby is unwanted, then it just suddenly becomes tissue, something to be discarded. And so I watched that screen. I watched the suction tube. The suction wasn't yet turned on. I watched that go into the woman's uterus. And I watched as it went right up next to the side of this child and touched his side, he jumped. And he began flailing his arms and legs as if he was trying to move away from that abortion instrument. But there was nowhere for him to go. The doctor asked the technician to turn on the suction machine, and he said, "Beam me up, Scotty." And the suction was turned on. And I guess people make the assumption that what I saw next was the worst part, that seeing a child become dismembered in his mother's womb would be the worst part. And that was bad, but that wasn't the worst thing. The worst part was that when I had the opportunity to intervene on behalf of this child and his mother, I did nothing. I mean, I remember wanting to sit this woman up and to say, look what is happening to your baby. But I didn't. I just stood there and I watched. A few days later, I decided I could no longer work at Planned Parenthood. I didn't know what I was going to do. My husband was a teacher, so we know how much he was making. And I thought, what are we going to do? How are we going to live if I don't, how are we going to pay our bills if I don't make this type of money anymore? And I was nervous to leave. I mean, I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know who was going to help me. Honestly, I didn't know who I would be anymore. If I wasn't this Planned Parenthood director, if I wasn't this pro-choice activist, I didn't know who I was going to be. And I knew that if I left, I would have to admit that I had been wrong. But it wasn't like, I was wrong about this small thing. I was wrong. And my mistake meant that I had participated in the death of about 20,000 babies. That's a big wrong. And I didn't know if I could admit it. But I ended up reaching out to the pro-life group who had been outside of my clinic for many years, always offering to help if I ever wanted to leave. And the day after I met them, I decided that I would go ahead and just take that leap of faith and leave, not knowing what the next day was going to bring us. And so the day I left, I had let the pro-life group know that I was leaving, and so they sent a young man out in front of my clinic just to make sure that I was able to leave without any incident. And I walked out to my car and I waved at him and I told him that I would be at their office the next day. And I got in my car and I drove out of that parking lot for the last time and I took a left. And that young man, he didn't know that I could see him, but I remember looking in my rearview mirror and I watched as he just raised his hands to heaven and fell to his knees. Because you see, friends, there had to be days where they looked at me and they said, she is never going to leave. It's never going to happen. God, why do you have us praying and every day reaching out to this woman? She's never going to leave. There had to be days where they felt discouraged and they felt disappointed. But then I did leave. See, guys, I'm standing here in front of you today as a testament to the power of conversion. And I'm here to tell you that no one is beyond the power of conversion because no one is beyond the power of Christ. A few months after I left Planned Parenthood, I ended up meeting Joe Poyman for the first time. And we sat down and we were talking about things, and he was picking my brain and saying, what are the things that we could do to really end abortion in the state of Texas? And I gave him 5 things. And I said, 1, we need ultrasound legislation in Texas that will require that a doctor or a clinic gives the woman an option to see her baby on an ultrasound screen. Because we as women are smart enough to make our own decisions without coercion from the abortion industry. And I believe that. And women deserve to know truly all of their options without manipulation. You see, we didn't want a woman to see her ultrasound because the ultrasound exposes the lie of the abortion industry. So that was number one. And I wanted to make sure that there was a 24-hour waiting period, because the more that we can get women to just sit down and think about their options, we know that many of them will choose life if it's not just a rash decision. I also said that we needed to require that RU486, the medication abortion pill, that it would be administered according to FDA regulations, because Planned Parenthood apparently thinks that they are above the law, that they know better than the FDA. And they were prescribing this RU486 pill, and many women were having very serious complications. I also said that we needed to defund Planned Parenthood, that we needed to remove them from Title 10, Title 5, and Title 20 programs. I also said that our abortion clinics, if we would just require them to be ambulatory surgical centers, that they would close, not because they have to close, but because they will choose to close instead of giving women higher quality care. And I also said, I think it would be good if we could require abortion doctors to have admitting privileges, because many of these doctors have cases against them, malpractice has been filed against them, and if they had to get admitting privileges, which is standard for any healthcare provider, that they wouldn't be able to do it. And Joe said, we will get that done. And they did get it done. I believe wholeheartedly, since I've been working with Texas Alliance for Life, and just in a very small way, but I believe that Texas Alliance for Life, along with your prayers and your advocacy at the Capitol, I believe that they have almost single-handedly changed the culture in the state of Texas. And we now can say that we are proud to live in a pro-life state. And we will not be done. We will not stop fighting until every single abortion clinic is closed in this state. Roe v. Wade started here, and I'm telling you, it will end here in Texas. I worked public policy for Planned Parenthood for a while. Man, I bet they wish they would have fired me a long time before I quit. But I worked public policy for Planned Parenthood, and I can tell you that the only organization that we truly feared at the Capitol was Texas Alliance for Life. And that is because they are leaders, they are visionaries, and they are dedicated not just to closing abortion clinics, but to change our culture from one of a culture of death to a culture of life. So that it's not just about, because it's not just about the illegality of abortion, this is about conversion. This is about changing hearts and minds one at a time. And we see that happening in just a couple years, our abortion rate falling 25%. Guys, that is unheard of, and it's happening right here in the great state of Texas. Now is the time. Now is the time for all of us to stand. Now is the time for all of us to find our place in the pro-life movement. Just so you know, this is not your pro-life activity for the year. It's a good start, but we need your help all year long. The other day I was in the Dallas airport, and I went into the Interfaith Chapel to take a nap. I would like to tell you I was praying, but there's priests here, and I don't want to lie on stage. So I was taking a nap, and this man came in and woke me up, and so anyway, then I was really trying to look like I'd been praying, and I got up, and I didn't immediately see who it was, but I heard him kind of things rummaging around in the back, and I turned around, and it was a Muslim man. And he pulled out the prayer rug, and he put it down, and he began praying out loud to his God, not the one true God that we serve, but to his God, Allah. And that went on for about 5 minutes, about 5 to 6 minutes. And I just kind of sat there a little shocked, because I started to think about this man, and I started to think about how he came into this room. He saw me there, obviously, and he did not give two hoots about my presence inside of that room. He was not at all concerned if he was offending me with his prayers. I wasn't offended, but he wasn't concerned about that at all. And I started to think to myself, wow, I wish we as pro-lifers, I wish we as Christians were as bold as that man about our faith. You see, the time has come, friends, to be less concerned about the people around us that we may offend with our beliefs, and to become more concerned about offending the heart of God. People come up to me, to be braggy, and they're like, oh, I've been pro-life for 40 years. You know what? I don't care. I don't care how long you have said you are pro-life. I care about how you are living your life as a pro-life person. What are you doing to end abortion? Because it is going to take all of us becoming bold, becoming unabashedly pro-life everywhere we go, not hiding behind being politically correct, but being courageous about the things that we believe. The time is now, and I encourage all of you tonight to find your place in the pro-life movement. There is somewhere that you belong, that you can get active. Maybe it's in the Pregnancy Resource Center movement. Maybe it's walking the halls of the Capitol with many of us. Maybe it's doing something at your church. I don't know if you know this, but almost 70% of women having abortions are coming from our churches. We need Christians to be bold with their message. And we need clergy of courage to stand at the pulpit and declare the truth about abortion and to declare the power of forgiveness. I want you to know that I stand with you, that I am proud to be a Texan. People ask me what I love the most about Texas, and I say, our pride. I don't know that you could find a waffle maker shaped in any other state other than Texas. We are the greatest state in the nation. And we are so great that I have confidence that we will end abortion here in this great state of Texas. And it will then become a ripple effect that will go and reach far across our nation. I believe that during my lifetime, I will see an end to legalized abortion in the United States. And if you don't believe that, then you might as well get up and walk out, because if you don't believe that, then you don't know the same God that I do. Because the God that I know and the God that I serve, he is in the business of miracles, and he is doing them every single day. So I just want to close and say to you, thank you. Thank you for what you have been doing. Thank you for your support of Text Alliance for Life. K.O. O'Keefe is going to come up here in a moment and challenge you to give. I encourage you to be generous tonight with your time, with your treasure, with your talent. Scripture says that wherever your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And I can assure you that my heart is with this organization, Text Alliance for Life, and I want to encourage yours to be as well. I want to thank our legislators. Maybe one day I'll be serving with you, but until then, I just want to thank you for your courageous stand. It's not easy to do what they do, but they do it well, they do it with pride, and they do it with dignity. And I want to thank them for that, and I want to leave all of you encouraged. People come to me and they say, Abby, do you really think we're going to win? I mean, look, they've got Bill Clinton and Bill Gates and stacks of bills. But my response is always this: it doesn't matter how much money they have or who they have on their side, because we have the number one guy on our side, and that's Jesus Christ, and we will win this battle. Thank you so much, and God bless you.